The morning sun barely touched the tall windows of Steinhardt Concert Hall when 17-year-old Lily arrived. She'd been awake since 4 in the morning, too excited to sleep. Her mother had packed sandwiches for the train ride, but Lily hadn't eaten a single bite. Her stomach was doing flips. She stood outside the massive wooden doors now, her white cane folded and tucked under her arm. Other students rushed past her, some carrying expensive leather cases, others clutching sheet music that rustled in the morning breeze. Lily could hear them whispering, comparing notes about which conservatory they attended, who their teachers were, how many competitions they'd won. "Did you hear? Victor Aldridge is teaching today," one girl said, her voice breathy with excitement. "I know. I've been practicing for 3 months just for this," another replied. Lily smiled to herself. 3 months? She'd been preparing for this moment her entire life. Every night after dinner, while other kids watched television or played video games, she sat at her family's old upright piano. Her fingers knew every key, every pedal, every squeak of the bench. She didn't need to see the piano to play it. She felt it, heard it, lived it. Her mother touched her shoulder gently. "Ready, sweetheart?" Lily nodded. More than ready. They walked through the doors together, and immediately Lily was hit by the smell of old wood and polish. The acoustics were different here, richer somehow. Every footstep echoed, every whisper carried. She could tell this was a special place just by the way sound moved through it. A volunteer with a clipboard directed them to their seats. Lily counted the steps carefully, memorizing the path. 14 steps forward, turn right, 6 more steps, then her row. She'd need to remember this route when it was her turn to play. The hall filled quickly. Lily could hear at least 100 people, maybe more. Chairs scraped against the floor. Programs rustled. Someone tuned a violin in the corner, the high notes cutting through the chatter. Then a hush fell over the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced, "please welcome the internationally acclaimed pianist, Victor Aldridge." The applause was thunderous. Lily joined in, clapping until her palms stung. She'd listened to Victor's recordings so many times that she could play entire concerts from memory, note for note. His interpretation of Chopin had made her cry. His Rachmaninoff had given her chills. And now he was here just feet away from her. Victor began speaking, his voice deep and commanding. "Thank you all for being here today. I want to make something clear from the start. I don't do master classes to make you feel good. I do them to push you, to challenge you, to show you what real excellence looks like. Most of you will never perform professionally. That's just the truth. But for those few who have what it takes, I'm here to help you find it." Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. She wasn't intimidated. She was ready. The first student played. Lily listened intently, noting the slight hesitation in the left hand during the difficult passage. Victor heard it too. His critique was sharp, precise, but fair. The second student was better, earning a nod of approval. The third stumbled through a Liszt piece and was stopped halfway through. "Next," Victor called out. Lily's mother squeezed her hand. "That's you, honey." Lily stood, unfolding her cane with a soft click. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet hall. She began making her way toward the stage, counting steps, using her cane to guide her. 14 steps forward. Turn right. 6 more steps. She heard the whispers immediately. Is she blind? Oh no, this is going to be awkward. Why would she even come here? Lily kept walking, her face burning but her spine straight. She'd heard worse. She'd heard it her whole life. Teachers who said she should stick to singing. Judges who marked her down because she couldn't read sheet music on sight. Kids at school who thought her piano playing was some kind of party trick. She reached the stage stairs and began climbing. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. Her hand found the rail. Then she was on the stage, the vast empty space stretching out before her. She could feel the heat of the stage lights on her face, could sense the hundreds of eyes watching her. "Wait." Victor's voice rang out. "Stop right there." Lily froze, her hand still on her cane. "You're the blind girl?" he asked. His tone wasn't mean exactly, but it wasn't kind either. It was matter-of-fact, like he was reading a grocery list. "Yes, sir," Lily said, keeping her voice steady. She heard him sigh, long and heavy. "Look, I appreciate that you came all this way, but this is a master class for serious piano students. Advanced students. Playing at this level requires certain skills. You need to be able to sight-read complex scores. You need to watch a conductor. You need stage presence, which means knowing where the audience is, how to bow, how to position yourself." Lily's throat tightened. Her mother had warned her this might happen. They'd talked about it on the train, but hearing it now in front of all these people was different. "Sir," Lily said quietly, "I can do all of those things. Maybe not the same way others do, but I can do them." "I'm sure you're a fine player for your circumstances," Victor continued, and Lily could hear him shifting in his seat, probably crossing his legs, getting comfortable for a lecture. "But you have to understand there are limitations. Real practical limitations. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to be honest. Perhaps you should consider a different career path. Music therapy, maybe. Teaching young children. Those are wonderful options." The whispers grew louder now. Lily heard someone clear their throat uncomfortably. Another person shifted in their seat. She stood there alone on the massive stage, feeling smaller by the second. But then something inside her hardened. She thought about all those nights at the piano, all those hours of practice when her friends were out having fun, all those times people had told her what she couldn't do. She'd proven them wrong before. She could do it again. "Mr. Aldridge," Lily said, her voice stronger now, "I only ask for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes to play. If you still think I should pursue music therapy after that, I'll accept your advice." The hall went completely silent. Lily could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Somewhere in the back, a phone buzzed and was quickly silenced. Victor laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. "You're persistent, I'll give you that. Fine, 2 minutes. But I want everyone here to pay attention to what happens next. This is an important lesson about knowing your limitations and setting realistic goals." Lily heard him lean back in his chair. She imagined him crossing his arms, waiting to be proven right. She made her way to the piano bench, her cane tapping softly against the stage floor. Her fingers trailed along the edge of the piano until she found the bench. She sat down, adjusted her position slightly to the left, and placed her cane on the floor beside her. The keys were cool under her fingertips. She let her hands rest there for a moment, feeling the smooth ivory, the familiar spacing. This piano was different from hers at home, but all pianos spoke the same language. She closed her eyes, though it made no difference to what she saw. She took one deep breath and then she began to play. Lily's fingers hovered over the keys for just a second. She'd chosen Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, third movement, not the slow, dreamy first part that everyone knew. No, she was going for the third movement, the one that made professional pianists nervous, the one that required your hands to move so fast they became a blur. Her piano teacher back home had tried to talk her out of it. "Pick something safer," Mrs. Chen had said. "Something that shows your musicality without so much risk." But Lily didn't want safe. She wanted to show Victor Aldridge exactly what she could do. The first notes came out soft, almost questioning. Her right hand began the rolling pattern while her left hand laid down the foundation. She could feel Victor's eyes on her, could sense his skepticism like a weight in the air. Behind her, someone coughed. Another person whispered something she couldn't quite hear, but then the music started to build, and Lily forgot about all of them. Her fingers moved faster now, dancing across the keys with a precision that came from knowing them by heart. She didn't need to see where her hands were going. She felt it. Every key had its own voice, its own personality. Middle C was steady and reliable. The high notes sang like birds. The bass notes rumbled like thunder. In the audience, a girl named Patricia leaned forward in her seat. She'd been playing piano since she was 4 years old and had won competitions in 3 different states. She'd been sure she would impress Victor today, but now watching this blind girl play, her confidence started to crack. The speed was incredible, yes, but it was more than that. There was something else happening. Victor uncrossed his arms. He sat up straighter, his head tilting slightly to the side like a dog hearing a strange sound. His hand, which had been tapping impatiently on the armrest, went still. The music was getting faster now, more demanding. Lily's hands crossed over each other, her fingers flying to different parts of the keyboard and back again. This was the part where most students made mistakes, where the notes came so quick that your brain couldn't keep up with your hands. But Lily didn't hesitate. Not even for a second, her whole body moved with the music. She swayed slightly, her head tilted back, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She wasn't performing for the audience. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just playing the way some people breathe or birds fly, natural, necessary. A boy in the 3rd row stopped taking notes. His pen hung forgotten in his hand as he watched. He'd driven 6 hours to be here, slept in his car to save money on a hotel. He thought he knew what good piano playing sounded like. But this was different. This was something he'd only heard on recordings from the great masters. Victor's mouth had fallen slightly open. He caught himself and closed it quickly, glancing around to see if anyone had noticed. But everyone was watching Lily. The skeptical whispers had stopped. The uncomfortable shifting had stopped. Even the girl in the back who'd been checking her phone had put it away. The music crashed and soared, soft one moment and thunderous the next. Lily played the gentle parts with such tenderness that it felt like a whisper in your ear. Then the powerful parts came, and it felt like the whole building was shaking. Her technique was flawless, but that wasn't what made people lean forward in their seats. It was the feeling behind the notes. The story she was telling without words. Beethoven had written this piece when he was going deaf. When the world was becoming quieter and quieter for him, until finally he couldn't hear his own music anymore. He could only feel it. And somehow Lily understood that. She played like someone who knew what it meant to experience the world differently, to find beauty in unexpected places. Victor stood up. He didn't even realize he was doing it at first. His legs just moved on their own, bringing him to his feet. He'd heard thousands of pianists over his 45-year career. He'd judged competitions in 12 countries. He'd taught students who went on to win international awards, but this moment right here was making him question everything he thought he knew. The hard part was coming now, the part that separated good pianists from great ones, a series of rapid notes that required both hands to work in perfect coordination while maintaining the emotional intensity. Many professionals had to slow down here just a little, just enough to get through it, but Lily didn't slow down. If anything, she sped up. Her mother, sitting in the audience, had her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles were white. She'd heard Lily practice this piece 1,000 times in their living room, but something was different today. Maybe it was the acoustics of the concert hall. Maybe it was the pressure of the moment. Or maybe Lily was finally playing the way she'd always been meant to play. The music built to a crescendo, each note stacking on top of the last, climbing higher and higher. Lily's face was intense now, focused. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her fingers were moving so fast they were almost invisible. The sound filled every corner of the massive hall, wrapping around the audience like a wave. A retired music teacher named Mr. Harrison sat in the back row with tears streaming down his face. He'd taught for 37 years before his arthritis got too bad to play anymore. He'd come today thinking he'd be bored, that it would be just another masterclass with talented but predictable students. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected to feel music in his bones again like he was 20 years old. Victor took a step closer to the stage. Then another. He was drawn to the piano like a moth to a flame, unable to stay in his seat. This wasn't supposed to happen. He'd given this girl 2 minutes as a courtesy, as a teaching moment for the other students. He'd been ready to gently explain why she should consider other options. But now he didn't know what to think. The final section began. This was it, the home stretch. The most technically demanding part of the entire piece. Lily's hands were a blur of motion, hitting every note with perfect clarity even as they moved at impossible speed. The rhythm was precise. The dynamics were perfect. But more than that, there was joy in her playing now. Pure, unbridled joy. She wasn't thinking about Victor anymore. She wasn't thinking about proving herself or showing anyone what she could do. She was just inside the music, living in those notes, free in a way that only musicians understand. When you play from your soul instead of your head, when the music moves through you instead of from you, that's when magic happens. And magic was happening now. The other students in the audience forgot about their own performances. They forgot about competing for Victor's attention. They forgot about everything except the sound pouring from that piano. Some of them realized with a sinking feeling that they might never play this beautifully. Others felt inspired, like they'd just witnessed something that made them want to practice harder, to dig deeper, to find that same connection with their instrument. The final notes approached. Lily built the tension, holding back just slightly, making everyone wait for it. Then she released it all at once, her hands coming down on the keys with perfect force, the final chord ringing out like a bell. The last note hung in the air, vibrating in the silence. Lily's hand stayed on the keys, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. She'd done it. She'd played it perfectly from start to finish. No mistakes, no hesitations. For 3 long seconds, nobody moved, nobody breathed. The silence was so complete that you could hear the heating system humming in the walls. and then Victor Aldridge began to clap. Victor's clapping started slow, deliberate. Each clap echoed through the silent hall like a drumbeat. Then the woman sitting next to him joined in. Then another person, then another. Within seconds, the entire concert hall erupted into applause, but it wasn't regular applause. This was the kind of clapping that comes from deep in your chest, the kind that makes your hands hurt because you're hitting them together so hard. People weren't just being polite. They were responding to something that had moved them, changed them, made them see the world differently for a few minutes. Lily sat frozen on the piano bench, her hands still resting on the keys. She could hear the applause washing over her like an ocean wave, but she couldn't quite process what was happening. She'd expected polite clapping at best, maybe some uncomfortable silence at worst, but this sounded like the recordings she'd heard of famous concert halls after legendary performances. One by one, people started standing up. First the retired teacher in the back, then the students in the front rows, then Victor himself. Soon everyone was on their feet, and the applause grew even louder. Someone whistled. Another person shouted, "Bravo!" Lily's mother had both hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She'd always believed in her daughter, always known Lily was special. But seeing an entire room of people recognize it too, seeing them give her daughter a standing ovation, was almost too much to handle. Her husband had wanted to come today, but he'd had to work. Wait until she told him about this. He wasn't going to believe it. Patricia, the competition winner who'd been so confident before, was clapping too. But her face was complicated, a mix of admiration and something else. Envy, maybe. Or the uncomfortable realization that all her trophies and certificates didn't mean as much as she thought they did. She'd been playing technically perfect pieces for years, hitting every note exactly right, following every instruction her teachers gave her. But she'd never made anyone feel the way Lily just had, and she didn't know if she ever could. The applause continued for what felt like forever. Lily finally turned on the bench, facing the audience she couldn't see. She stood up carefully, making sure she had her balance. Then she bowed, the way her mother had taught her. Straight from the waist, hands at her sides, holding it for 3 seconds before coming back up. The applause got louder somehow, which Lily didn't think was possible. Her face was burning. She could feel her heart pounding so hard it might jump out of her chest. She wanted to say something, to thank them, but her throat was too tight. All she could do was bow again. Victor was still standing, still clapping, but his face had gone through a journey in the last few minutes. The skepticism was gone completely, replaced by something that looked almost like shock. His eyes were slightly wider than normal. His perfectly composed expression had cracked, showing raw emotion underneath. He'd spent his entire career believing certain things about music, about talent, about what it took to be truly great. He'd developed theories and teaching methods. He'd written books. He'd given lectures at universities around the world. And in less than 5 minutes, a 17-year-old blind girl had made him question all of it. How had she done it? How had she navigated that impossible third movement without seeing the keys? How had she maintained such perfect rhythm, such precise dynamics? But more importantly, how had she found that emotional depth? That wasn't something you could teach. That wasn't something that came from years of lessons or expensive schools. That came from somewhere else entirely. The boy in the third row was still standing, still clapping, but his mind was racing. He'd been planning to play a Chopin piece for his turn. It was difficult, impressive, the kind of thing that usually earned praise from teachers. But now it felt hollow somehow. He'd been so focused on playing the notes correctly that he'd forgotten to ask himself what the music actually meant. What was he trying to say with it? What did he want people to feel? The applause finally started to die down. People sat back in their seats, but the energy in the room had completely changed. It felt electric now, charged with possibility. Everyone was looking at Victor, waiting to see what he would do next. Victor cleared his throat. He took a few steps closer to the stage, close enough that Lily could probably hear his footsteps. When he spoke, his voice was different than before, softer, more human. "Young lady," he began, then stopped. He seemed to be searching for words, which was unusual for a man who always knew exactly what to say. "What is your name?" "Lily Chen, sir," she answered. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Lily," Victor repeated like he was testing how the name felt in his mouth. "How long have you been playing piano?" "Since I was 5, sir." 12 years. And who is your teacher? Mrs. Chen. She teaches at the community center in my town. Victor nodded slowly, processing this information. A community center teacher. Not a famous conservatory. Not a renowned private instructor. Just a local teacher doing her best with the students who came through her door. That piece you just played, Victor continued. The Moonlight Sonata, third movement. Do you know how many professional pianists struggle with it? How many concerts I've attended where someone made mistakes in exactly the passages you just played perfectly? Lily shook her head. She genuinely didn't know. She'd chosen it because she loved it, because it spoke to something inside her. She hadn't really thought about how difficult it was compared to other pieces. I have been playing piano for 45 years, Victor said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. I have performed in Carnegie Hall, the Sydney Opera House, the Royal Albert Hall. I have recorded 15 albums. I have taught students who went on to win the most prestigious competitions in the world. He paused, and in that pause, everyone held their breath. And just now, I heard something I haven't heard in a very long time. Maybe ever. His voice cracked slightly on that last word. You didn't just play those notes, Lily. You understood them. You felt them. There's a difference between playing music and being music, and you just showed everyone in this room what that difference is. Lily didn't know what to say. She just stood there, her hands clasped in front of her, trying not to cry. I need to apologize, Victor continued. To you and to everyone here. I made a judgment about you before you even sat down at that piano. I looked at your white cane and decided I knew what you could and couldn't do. I assumed that being blind was a limitation that would hold you back. He walked closer to the stage now, right up to the stairs. But I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. Your blindness isn't a limitation. It's given you something that most of us spend our entire lives trying to find. You hear music differently. You feel it differently. You connect with it in a way that has nothing to do with reading sheet music or watching a conductor, or any of the things I said you needed. The hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Every single person was hanging on Victor's words. You taught me something today, Lily, Victor said, and now there were definitely tears in his eyes. You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. Not because of the technical achievements or the applause or the awards, but because of moments like this. Moments when someone plays from their soul and touches everyone who hears it. He climbed the first step, then the second. Then he was on the stage with her. He reached out and took her hand. Not in a handshake, but holding it gently, the way you might hold something precious and fragile. Thank you, he said simply. Thank you for sharing your gift with us. And then Victor Aldridge, the man who never cried in public, who prided himself on his professional composure, let the tears fall freely down his face. Lily felt Victor's hand holding hers, warm and slightly trembling. She could hear the emotion in his voice, could sense that something fundamental had shifted in the room, but she still couldn't quite believe what was happening. This man, this legend who had dismissed her just minutes ago, was now crying because of her music. I don't understand, Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Victor squeezed her hand gently. What don't you understand? You're Victor Aldridge. You've played for presidents and queens. You've won every award there is to win. Why are you thanking me? Victor laughed, but it was a soft laugh, almost sad. Because, Lily, somewhere along the way I forgot something important. I got so caught up in perfection, in technique, in impressing people, that I stopped listening to what the music was trying to tell me. You just reminded me of what I'd lost. He turned to face the audience, still holding Lily's hand. I want everyone here to witness this moment, to remember it. Because this is what real artistry looks like. Not the certificates on your wall or the competitions you've won. Not the name of your school or who your teacher studied with. It's about this connection between the musician and the music. The retired teacher in the back, Mr. Harrison, was nodding along. He'd seen this happen before, decades ago, with a young violinist who came from nowhere and played like an angel. But the music world hadn't been ready for her. They'd torn her apart for minor technical issues while missing the bigger picture. He'd watched her give up, watched her talent disappear into an ordinary life. He hoped this time would be different. Victor finally released Lily's hand and turned to her directly. Lily, I teach a very small group of students, usually only 5 or 6 at a time. They come from all over the world to study with me in Vienna. The waiting list is 3 years long, and even then, I only accept maybe 1 student out of every 100 who apply. Lily nodded, not sure where this was going. She knew about Victor's private students. Every serious piano student knew about them. They were like unicorns, these lucky few who got to study with the master himself. "I want you to be one of them," Victor said. The words hung in the air for a moment. Lily wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. "I'm sorry, what?" "I want you to come to Vienna and study with me. Full scholarship, everything paid for. Your tuition, your accommodations, living expenses, everything. I'll arrange it all." Lily's mother gasped from her seat in the audience. She stood up without meaning to, her hand over her heart. "Vienna?" she said out loud, then quickly sat back down, embarrassed. Victor smiled in the direction of her voice. "Yes, Vienna. Your daughter is exceptionally talented, and I would be honored to work with her." Lily's mind was spinning. Vienna, Austria. Halfway around the world from her small town, from her family, from everything she knew, she'd dreamed about studying with someone like Victor, but she'd never actually thought it could happen. Dreams were supposed to stay dreams, weren't they? "But sir," Lily started, her voice shaking, "you said that blind students can't make it at this level. You said there were limitations, that I should consider music therapy or teaching instead." Victor flinched like she'd slapped him. "I did say that, didn't I?" He ran his hand through his hair, looking suddenly older. "And I've been thinking about why I said it these last few minutes while you were playing." He walked to the edge of the stage and sat down, right there in front of everyone, his legs dangling over the side. It was such an informal gesture, so unlike the composed maestro who'd started the masterclass. "You want to know the truth? I was scared." "Scared?" Lily repeated. "Of what?" "Of being wrong. Of having to change my methods. Of admitting that maybe I don't know everything about music after all." He laughed bitterly. "I've built my entire reputation on being the expert, the one who knows best. And then you walked in with your white cane, and I saw a challenge to everything I believed. So instead of being curious, instead of giving you a chance, I tried to dismiss you before you could prove me wrong." The audience was completely silent. Nobody had ever heard Victor Aldridge talk like this. He was always so confident, so self-assured. Seeing him vulnerable, admitting his mistakes, was like watching a mountain decide to be humble. Patricia, the competition winner, felt something crack open inside her chest. She'd been taught that confidence was everything, that showing weakness was failure. But here was the greatest pianist of their generation, admitting he'd been wrong. And somehow it made him seem more impressive, not less. "The thing is," Victor continued, looking up at Lily even though she couldn't see his face, "I've been teaching piano the same way for 30 years. I have my methods, my system, my beliefs about what works and what doesn't. And they do work for most students, but they're based on assumptions. Like the assumption that you need to see the music to play it, that you need to watch the conductor to follow them, that visual cues are essential." He stood up again, brushing off his expensive suit pants. "But you just proved that those are just my assumptions, not universal truths. You've found different ways to do all those things. Ways I never even thought of because I never had to." Lily felt tears starting to run down her cheeks. She'd spent so much of her life being told what she couldn't do. Teachers who meant well but had low expectations. Schools that didn't know how to accommodate her. Other musicians who saw her blindness before they heard her music. And now this man, this legend, was telling her that her differences weren't weaknesses. They were strengths. "I can't speak for the other students," Victor said, turning to address the whole room again. "But I hope you're all paying attention to this moment. Not just to Lily's playing, though that was extraordinary, but to this lesson about assumptions, about judging people before you know them, about limiting others because of your own limited thinking." The boy in the third row was writing frantically in his notebook now. Not about technique or finger positions, but about what Victor was saying. This was the real lesson of the masterclass, he realized. Not about how to play better, but about how to think differently. "Lily," Victor said, his voice becoming more businesslike now, "I understand this is a big decision. You'll need to talk to your family, make arrangements. Vienna is far from home, and I know that's not easy. But I want you to know that my offer is genuine. I believe you have the potential to be one of the great pianists of your generation. And I would consider it a privilege to be part of your journey." Lily's mother was already doing calculations in her head. How would this work? Who would go with Lily? How would they afford the flights back and forth? But then she looked at her daughter's face, saw the mixture of shock and joy and fear and excitement, and she knew they would figure it out. Somehow they would make it work. "There's something else," Victor said. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Thomas, yes, it's me. I need you to come to Steinhardt Hall right now. Bring your recording equipment." "Yes, now. I'll explain when you get here." He hung up and smiled at Lily. "I want to record you playing. That performance needs to be preserved, shared with the world." Lily couldn't speak. She just stood there, overwhelmed by everything that was happening. 20 minutes ago, she'd been the blind girl who wasn't supposed to be here. Now she was being offered a chance to study with one of the greatest pianists alive, and he wanted to record her music. "I don't know what to say," Lily finally managed. Victor walked back to her and placed his hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to say anything right now. Just promise me you'll think about it. Promise me you won't let fear or doubt talk you out of your dreams." Lily nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "I promise." And somewhere in that concert hall, in the hearts of every person who'd witnessed what just happened, something changed. They'd come expecting a typical masterclass. They'd left having seen something rare and precious. A reminder that music wasn't about following rules or meeting expectations. It was about truth, vulnerability, and the courage to be exactly who you were meant to be. 3 months later, Lily stood in the Vienna International Airport, her mother beside her, both of them clutching their suitcases. The journey from their small town to this moment had been a whirlwind of paperwork, phone calls, and sleepless nights. But here they were, actually in Vienna, about to start a life neither of them had ever imagined. Victor had arranged everything, just like he promised. An apartment near his studio, walking distance so Lily could navigate it safely. A monthly stipend for living expenses, even a part-time assistant to help with things like grocery shopping and reading mail. He'd thought of details that Lily and her mother hadn't even considered. The first week was overwhelming. Vienna was so different from home. The language, the food, the way people moved through the streets with such purpose. Lily got lost twice trying to find the corner bakery. She cried herself to sleep the third night, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. But then she walked into Victor's studio for her first real lesson. The room smelled like coffee and old books. Victor greeted her warmly, guiding her to the piano in the center of the room. It was a Steinway Grand, the kind of instrument Lily had only ever dreamed of touching. Her fingers trembled as she placed them on the keys. "Nervous?" Victor asked gently. "Terrified," Lily admitted. "Good. That means you care. Now play something for me. Anything you want." Lily chose a Chopin nocturne, something soft and melancholy that matched her mood. As she played, Victor listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Beautiful," he finally said. "Now tell me, what were you thinking about while you played?" Lily was confused. "I was thinking about the notes, about playing them correctly." "That's the problem," Victor said, but his tone was kind, not critical. "You're thinking about playing correctly, but I don't want correct. I want honest. I want to hear what Lily is feeling, not what Lily thinks Chopin wanted." It was the beginning of a transformation that would take months. Victor didn't teach the way Lily expected. He rarely talked about technique or finger positions. Instead, he asked questions. "What does this phrase make you feel? If this melody was a color, what would it be? If you could have a conversation with Chopin, what would you ask him?" At first, Lily thought it was strange. Weren't they supposed to be working on scales and arpeggios? But slowly she began to understand. Victor was teaching her to trust herself, to stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be real. Her mother stayed for the first month, then had to return home. Lily's father needed her and they couldn't both be away. The day her mother left, Lily sat alone in the apartment and wondered if she could actually do this by herself. She could. And she did. By the second month, Lily had made friends with the other students in Victor's program. There was Antonio from Brazil, who played with such passion that he sometimes broke piano strings. There was Yuki from Japan, whose precision was almost mathematical. And there was Klaus from Germany, who could sight-read anything you put in front of him. None of them treated Lily like she was fragile or limited. They treated her like a fellow musician, which was all she'd ever wanted. They practiced together, ate dinner together, argued about interpretations of pieces until midnight. For the first time in her life, Lily felt like she truly belonged somewhere. The breakthrough came during her 4th month in Vienna. Victor had given her a new piece to learn, something modern and challenging. Lily had been struggling with it for weeks, frustrated because she couldn't seem to capture the right feeling. "Stop," Victor said during one particularly frustrating practice session. "Just stop playing." Lily lifted her hands from the keys, confused. "Tell me about the hardest thing that's ever happened to you," Victor said. Lily blinked. "What does that have to do with this piece?" "Just trust me. Tell me." So Lily told him about being 7 years old, about the other kids at school who wouldn't play with her because they didn't know how to play with someone who couldn't see, about feeling invisible and alone, about wondering if she would ever have real friends. "Now play the piece again," Victor said quietly, "but this time play it for that 7-year-old girl. Play it for everyone who's ever felt invisible." Lily put her hands back on the keys, and something clicked. The notes that had seemed random and difficult suddenly made sense. They were about isolation and longing and the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, would see you for who you really were. When she finished, Victor was quiet. Then he said, "That's it. That's what I've been waiting for. Now you're not just playing music. You're sharing your soul." The masterclass recording that Victor had made went viral online. Someone posted it, and within days it had millions of views. Comments poured in from around the world. "Who is this girl? I've never heard anything so beautiful. She plays with her heart, not her hands." Record labels started calling. Concert halls wanted to book her. Music magazines requested interviews. It was overwhelming and exciting and terrifying all at once. Lily was only 18 years old, and suddenly the entire music world wanted a piece of her. Victor protected her from most of it. "You're not ready yet," he said firmly when an American label offered a recording contract. "You're still learning, still growing. Don't let them rush you." 2 years passed. 2 years of lessons and practice and growth. Lily's playing evolved in ways she never could have imagined. She learned to trust her instincts, to take risks, to pour everything she had into every note. And then Victor made an announcement. "It's time," he said one autumn afternoon. "You're ready for your debut concert. Not just any concert. The Vienna Musikverein, one of the most prestigious concert halls in the world. The same stage where the great masters had performed for over a century. Lily would be the youngest pianist to headline there in 20 years. The night of the concert, Lily stood backstage in a blue dress her mother had helped her pick out months ago. Her parents had flown in for the occasion. Her father kept hugging her, too emotional to speak. Her mother was giving last-minute advice about posture and breathing, the way she always did. Victor appeared beside her. "Nervous?" "Beyond nervous," Lily admitted. "There are 2,000 people out there. They're not here to judge you," Victor said. "They're here because they want to feel something. And you know how to make people feel. That's your gift." The stage manager gave her the signal. It was time. Lily walked onto that legendary stage, her cane tapping softly against the polished wood. The audience applauded politely. She found her way to the piano bench, adjusted it slightly, and placed her hands on the keys. For a moment, she thought about that day at the master class, about Victor's dismissive words, about how close she'd come to walking away without playing, about how one moment of courage had changed everything. Then she began to play. The first notes filled the hall, rich and clear. This time she was playing one of the pieces Victor had commissioned especially for her, written by a young composer who understood her unique way of experiencing music. It was called Unseen Light, and it was about finding beauty in darkness, about perceiving the world through sound and touch and feeling.